It is time to talk about 6 books I finished in October, and boy was that a rough month. Before I tell you more, let's talk about the cover page. For the longest time I was unsure what to do with the cover, but then I remembered I had this very dark, very gothic, very Halloween PET tape with crows, skulls and roses I recently got from Journal Say, and I got so excited. I like this tape so much that I would be happy with placing it all over this spread from top to bottom, but I eventually decided against it and I went looking for other stationery that would match the vibe. I also found these red windows and I had such a hard time deciding which one to use. I eventually decided on one, and I also added the girl in the red dress to the page. At this point I somehow feel like I need to have a person on the cover. Without it the page looks unfinished, I think. But I am not saying there won't be a theme or a cover page without a character in the future. The cream colored book page in the background is there to fill up the space and also to bring in another color. I love the whole black, red, white mood, but with the window being slightly beige and more warm toned than the rest of the stationery, there was something more needed. Something that would not be overwhelming and competing with the other pieces. For the title, I used the same font as I did in my October daily journal setup. It matches the vibe perfectly. I only wish I made the color a bit darker. It would match so much better, but it is what it is. To fill the page even more, I added these black animals with gold flecks I have got from Sticky Club, and I am so glad I've had these because I feel like they brought in this mysterious and slightly haunted atmosphere to the page, especially after I add more onto the right side. I was feeling all over the place when I was setting up this spread, so next, instead of penning the calendar, I for some reason went in to add the book covers. I played a bit with their placement and it all looked odd until I have realized I could fit 3 book covers next to each other, and now I think it looks so much better. There is no background behind the book covers except the book page because honestly I forgot. I would like there to be something, especially in the lower half. These are book covers for all books I was reading during October, even those I have not finished by the end of the month. That's why even when you see 8 books in here, I will be talking about 6 in this video. Now I am adding the roses. I would love if there was less green on them, but oh well, they still match quite nicely. I put this small rosebud in the blank space next to the book covers, and I think we can all agree that it was way too small for that space, but don't worry, I will replace it later. There were also single rose petals on this sticker sheet and I put those around the window. I wish there were more. I love how they look in this setup. Now I am adding more of these black and white animals, and the bird on top of the page looks so ominous. I love it. It is finally time to add the calendar in. I used an Ohuhu marker for the initial lines, and yes, there is a wonky one. I have no idea what happened there. My hand decided to ignore the ruler, I guess. I will cover it up later, don't worry. I did not like how thin and not black enough these lines were, so I went over with the black gel pen, and while it is not much thicker, it is much darker, and that made a difference. I, of course, can't forget the numbers. These were the only red number stickers I had, and they thankfully fit in so nicely. Now you can see here I replaced the rosebud with the bigger rose. This one, on the other hand, might be too big for that space, but I surely like it better than the previous one. Then I went ahead and put a bunch of bird silhouettes all around the spread. This is one of my favorite PET tapes I have ever had. These bird silhouettes are so good for filling the page without being too distracting. Lastly, I filled in the calendar and the cover spread is done. It is simpler than my usual cover pages, but I really like the vibes. Talking about vibes, let's flip to the next page and work on the book reviews. First, I am going to talk about darker, heavier and moodier reads, and I could not pass the opportunity to use this garland-like tape with skulls, keys and butterflies. It is so pretty. I am going to start decorating on the right page with stickers from Izobova. I really wanted to finish all these sticker sheets. There was not much left on them, but they were perfect for this spread. In here will be my review for the Sins of the Mother and That's Beating Heart, books 4 and 5 in the War Eternal series by Rob J. Hayes. This is an indie series and it seems to be not known at all. There are only 500 or 600 reviews for these two books. 100. And I am so happy I can tell you that by reading these two books, I did indeed finish the whole series. At first, I was not sure where these two books stand in the storyline, because when you read the description of the third book in this series, it actually says it is the conclusion to the trilogy. And then, 2 years later, we got 2 more books. The story started 2 years after the events of the last book, and while it was nice to be back in this dark fantasy world, and Moira Quirk, who is narrating this series, is exceptional, by the second half of the last book, I was kind of wishing it would be already over. A good chunk of the book 4 was spent retelling past books, and the rest was a family drama, which I am not the biggest fan of. I still love Eska, the main character, but at the same time I am glad this series is finished. I would still recommend to read it. The world and the magic systems are so good. Eska is a very powerful, angry and foul-mouthed sorceress who fought on the wrong side and got imprisoned in the pit under the ground. That's where the story starts, and it takes you on a long and treacherous journey that might have gotten a bit long and repetitive by the end, but it was still a very good ride. On the left side, I am going to write a review for 2 more books. The first one is An Education in Malice. It was 6 days to the end of the month when I realized I have not read for the Adventures in Eldia challenge yet, and for October I needed to read a book with foil on the cover, which none of my reads so far had. I went through my bookshelves and found Education in Malice. It was on my TBR for a while, so I was happy I would finally get to reading it. And guys, I sadly did not like it at all. Yeah, okay, let's start with a positive. A single one, yes. The atmosphere. S.T. Gibson really brought out this dark, gothic and mysterious atmosphere of isolation that could be felt throughout the book, but that was the only thing I liked. This was supposed to be a vampire story about love, desire and obsession, and I sadly think what we got was not enough. I could not connect to any of the characters or the story itself, and I have a big beef with the quote vampire unquote. At the start of the book there is one, let's say, older vampire, and what do you expect when they say vampire? Drinking blood? Yes, and maybe they are quicker than average human, maybe they have better hearing, they might be stronger. Nope, none of that was in this book except the blood. Is it only me who is disappointed? Am I being too harsh or critical? Let me know what do you think when someone says vampire. I felt like I was reading a story about a human who loved blood. She needed a teenager to help her carry a student to the room. She was eavesdropped on multiple times. She could not outrun students, and she acted like a petulant child every time something happened that she did not like. And most of it would have been so very easily avoided without it affecting the story. I feel like this book needed more of everything. It all felt very superficial and not thought through. Also, the book has 350 pages or so, and the font is huge. I am not saying this often, but 100 or 200 additional pages might make this book more enjoyable. I am a very harsh critic, so please don't let me deter you from reading this one if it is something you think you might like, but I am also not going to lie and say I loved it. As I said, the atmosphere is so good, and it is the reason I finished the book. In the bottom part of the page, I have a very small section for the Of Blood and Fire. It was my first book from Ryan Cahill, and I liked it. It was a solid read, but I have to say it brought nothing new to the world of fantasy. There were all these traditional fantasy tropes like village life, corrupt kingdom, monsters, dragons, adventure. And don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with that. I believe this is author's first novel, but with how this story progressed, I believe there is a chance of something more than the rehash of old themes. I will of course have to continue with the series to see if I am right. If you are in a mood for a nostalgic feeling fantasy with good written characters, this might be a series to check out. It has less than 20,000 ratings on Goodreads and 3,000 on Storygraph, which honestly surprised me. It is very good for the indie book, and I am not going to lie, I thought this was traditionally published. Also, this author can really write villains. I felt true hate for some of them. Okay guys, now for some brighter and cozier reads. The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune was like a palate cleanser after the extra dark dose of fantasy in the previous books. It was a book club read for me and my friends, where we each chose a book and we annotated while reading. I was the first one to read the book again, so I had no pleasure in reading what my friends thought about it. And I went into this totally blind. I had no idea what it was about, except that there is an Antichrist child, and that's what everyone will tell you about this book. I, at first, loved it. I loved the humor and the setting, but I got slightly annoyed as the story progressed. It very much resembled writing in first Harry Potter books. It also got quite repetitive, and the dialogues were cringeworthy. Sorry. The main character was so blind for the most of the book, and I could guess most of the story after a couple of pages, and the writing was very heavy-handed. I guess we are supposed to take this underdeveloped world as it is and ask no questions. There was so much that did not make sense or that I wanted to know more about, but I knew I won't get any answers. I loved these children with all my heart, and they are the reason I finished this book. Also, their dark humor was so good in parts. And guys, I don't know, I might be a cold-hearted person, because I have to say this was too sugary sweet for me. I understand why people love this book. There were so many good messages like don't judge others by their appearance, don't be ashamed of who you are, it is worth to fight for something better, but I am sorry guys, it is once again a well-loved book that I did not enjoy much, and I don't see myself reading the sequel. Yes, I am sad about it, but it is what it is. I just don't think TJ Klune's writing is for me, and that is totally okay. There are so many people who loved this book, so again, if this is something you are interested in, give it a go. My opinion is only 1 in thousands. The last review is for A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. I had no intentions of reading cozy fantasy in the near future, but this being part of 2 book clubs I occasionally take part in, I decided to give it a go. And despite me not being a fan of cozy fantasy, this was maybe the best read of October for me. Gasp. No, I did not suddenly start to like this genre. It is just that everything else was less enjoyable. This story is about Sarah, the most powerful witch in Britain, of course, who lost most of her magic, was exiled from her guild, and is now helping her aunt to run a secretly enchanted inn. Also, there is a talking fox and undead rooster. As far as cozy fantasy goes, this had enough going on that it did not get boring for me. That's usually what makes me not enjoy these books. I like the writing and I really enjoyed the friendships we saw building over the course of the story. Atmosphere was perfect for an October read. I would like if there was even more of the innkeeping aspect, but what we got was still quite interesting. Where this lost me was the romance. As I said, the friendships were amazing, but I could not believe even one of these relationships. It felt so sudden and, frankly, not needed. I can see why people like this book. It is cute, it is cozy, it is magical, and for me, it was an okay read, even when not perfect. For decorating this page, I was so excited when I found stationery almost perfectly matching with the book cover, especially those washi tapes. Also, the green sticker sheet from Ikigai Papier was so fitting, both with the color and the theme. I threw in cheeky older lady in there as well, because why not? She is adorable. This is all for my book reviews, but there is still something I need to do. I took part in the Bewitched book challenge hosted by Erin Smith, and because there is not enough pages in this notebook left, instead of dedicating a full spread to this challenge, I made a small booklet out of the graphics we were given, so I could keep them in this journal that way. The challenge's description is so cute, let me read it for you. The season of shadows has arrived and there is magic afoot. You have discovered a grimoire filled with spells and enchantments. Your task is to cast as many as possible before the veil falls at midnight on All Hallows Eve. So, we are trying to cast spells, and each spell contains 3 reading prompts called charms. We earn 2 points for each charm cast, so for each prompt fulfilled. And when we read all 3 prompts assigned to a spell, we can then cast a spell and we get 5 more points. I might not be making too much sense, but believe me, it was so much fun trying to figure out where my reads lay and if I cast any spells. I was so successful that I somehow managed to get 61 points, which got me the High Witch achievement, and I'm so happy with that. There were 3 difficulty levels for this challenge, and I went with the easiest one, because I knew I won't be reading much in October. It was really nice of Erin to let people choose how much they wanted to read. As I said, all of these graphics are made by Erin, except the one with the book covers. I just wanted a space where I could note which prompt I fulfilled with which book, and the card with points I quickly made in Canva, so I could write down how many points I got, and so I could show off the wax seal I got. There is a link in the description that will bring you to the Erin's video about the challenge. You can still go through your reads and see where you would have placed. And don't forget to let us know in the comments if you do that. And if you took part, let us know as well. I really like how low stake this challenge was, and it was witchy themed, which is always a bonus. Okay guys, with this mini booklet done, I think we can flip through to the beginning of this journal and fill in all yearly trackers that need to be filled in. As always, we are starting with a reading goal. For October's color, I chose this Tombow marker. It is supposed to be this, I'm not sure if you can see that, this deep purple color, and I don't think it is. At least in all of my swatches it looked almost gray, but I don't really care. October was very dark and grayish month, so I think this marker is perfect, no matter if it is deep purple or gray. I finished 6 books, which means I am coloring in 6 of these boxes, and there is this very slight purple tint, and a little box in here as well. I am having a hard time figuring out what color to use, but there are only 2 months left, so I am sure I can come up with something. Okay, for books read in 2025, I have already filled this in, so I added Of Blood and Fire in here and the rest of the books in here. Now let's add all of the book covers. We are finally going to work on another page, which I am so happy about. Let's sort these in an order I finished them. Yeah, this and this. Okay. And I am going to do my best and align these with the book covers from this page. Yeah, that looks very nice. There are not that many trackers I need to fill in this month, but I am happy for every progress, even if it is a small one. Okay, so 4th one, 5th, and the 6th. I will definitely be able to fill in this first row. There is only 1 book cover missing, and hopefully I can fill 1 more, maybe 2 more, if everything will go smoothly. But I am confident with filling at least 1 row in here. Okay, next we have Read My Shelf, and I can finally do a check mark in here because I finished An Education in Malice. And that's about it. I also bought a few books, so I have written them in here. Now for series tracker, I can happily say that I finished a series, and that is the War Eternal, so I can mark it here and do a check mark. I'm so happy I am finally finished with this series. It took me, I think this is the 2nd year, maybe 3rd, I'm not sure. I guess 2nd year. I think I read the first book in January last year. And I need to add few series. So we have, okay, Cerulean Chronicles. I did not really enjoy this book, but I am tracking the series in here anyway, just so maybe I can mark it as did not finish or something. But I still want to have every series in here. And the next one is The Bound and the Broken. This is a very strange writing experience, but I somehow managed. Okay, so the Cerulean Chronicles has 2 books out, and for the Bound and the Broken, there are 9 books released. 4 of them are novellas, but I am tracking novellas in here as well. That's 9 dots. And the first book of this series actually has 2 novellas before that, so I will color in the 3rd square because it's technically a 3rd book in the series. I did not know there were 2 novellas before this one, so I will have to go back and read those. And for the Cerulean Chronicles, I read 1 book. I am working on few more series to finish this year. That's actually one of my goals for the end of the year. And I am doing a pretty good progress on a very, very big book. So I am really happy about that. And next month, I am sure we will color in a few dots in here as well. Yeah, let's continue. I have read nothing from this list, but I am currently reading 2 books from here. Hopefully they will be finished by the end of this year. Now, books bought, as I said, I have bought 5 books, so they are all written in here. I have got the 2 sequels in the 5th season series, and I have got 3 Terry Pratchett books. I decided I am going to collect all the Terry Pratchett books and read them, of course. So I slowly started with that, but this will be a long-term project, so I am not rushing to buy everything all at once. Nothing for the rainbow this time, and for days I finished a book. I can color in Saturday. Then I read nothing the following week, but that's understandable since I was in hospital. Then 15th. That was Wednesday, Tuesday 21st, and Saturday, Sunday that week, and then the last day of the month. Okay, nothing for the DNF graveyard, thankfully, but there were some contenders for that. Okay, I have already filled in all of these statistics. I have read a lot. It averaged to be 100 pages per day, which is quite a lot. There was only 1 month I read more, so that's exciting. But sadly, I did not really have luck with my book choices, so the average rating is also one of the lowest I have had. I think only April, was a lower one. This was not a perfect month, but I'm still happy I have read all the books I have read. Okay, for pages per book. Okay, this will be very interesting because 3 of my books were between 300 and 400 pages long. So it looks like I have not added enough boxes. Oh well. And the other 3 books were between 400 and 500 pages. I should start either reading very short books or bigger ones for the rest of this year. I am already trying to figure out how to make it better for next year. Hopefully it will work out. Nothing for Hall of Fame and nothing for here. For A to Z challenge, I believe there is something we can add, but I don't think we will fill in any of the new letters. So we have Of Blood and Fire for the book title and Sangu Mandana for the author. And we can also add TJ Klune in here. Okay. Reading in pixels, I have already filled that in for October, and there were quite a few days I have read a lot. So all of these pinks and blues and purples, they are days I read the most. I am happy. There were quite a few days like that. For the places I have visited, I added Mercia's Island, the Enchanted Inn in Lancashire. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. And then St. Perpetua's College in Massachusetts. There was also a Roshan, but I was just continuing the series, so there was not new for me this month. I can finally add a book for my book club I have with 2 of my friends. One of them chose The House on the Cerulean Sea, and honestly I finished it only because it was our book club book. So let's put it in here. And now I am only waiting for my friends to finish the book I assigned, and then I will read it. Nothing for the bingo. I have still not read a manga or webtoon. I can see myself, I will be doing that December 31st, just to make this all filled in by the end of this year. Okay, and the last thing is Buzzword Reading Challenge, and I don't believe there is anything. Oh, we can add A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping for the food and drink on the cover, because there is this tiny, I'm not sure you can see, this guy holds a mug of, I guess, coffee in his hands, so we can add that in here. But honestly, I did not print the book cover because I did not notice that mug of hot beverage when I was printing all of these covers. I will need to do that next month. And that's it for all of my monthly challenges. Now let's do a quick flip through of the pages I have made today. This feels slightly different than what I'm used to making, but I really like this dark and maybe mysterious atmosphere. These black and white animals definitely helped with that. And all of these crows, I really like this PT tape. Here are all of the darker reads, and again, I adore this PT tape. It's just so pretty. And all of these stickers, I think they fit very nicely with the overall theme. And these are more cozy and happy reads, so I did my best to make these pages quite colorful. and this is the booklet for the Bewitched book challenge. This was not really planned, so I am sure it could look better, but I am happy enough with that. And I so wished I had more pages available in this notebook, so I would be able to make full page or maybe a full spread dedicated to this challenge. But because there are not that many pages left, I opted for this, and it has to work. You can see, guys, this is what I have left for November and December. I think it's 13 pages, so it's roughly 6 pages a month, which is doable. It's doable because we used 6 pages today, but also when I try, I can really fit as many book reviews in here as possible, because in my September wrap-up, I managed to fit 8 book reviews on 2 pages. Well, it's technically 7 book reviews on 1 page, since this is the one book on 1 page. But yeah, I can make this happen, and I am determined to fit everything that needs to fit for this year in this journal. For next year, I will be using a much bigger notebook in terms of page count, so I believe I won't have to scribble at the end of the year to fit everything in. And with that said, I really hope I will be able to bring you a 2026 reading journal setup next week, hopefully. I have not started decorating my pages yet, but I am going to say I have made a pretty good plan, at least I think so, and there will need to be 24 pages set up, which is a lot. It is slightly intimidating, I am not going to lie, but at the same time I am extremely excited for my next year's journal. So if you don't want to miss that, please consider subscribing if you are not already. Here are some of my latest videos if you'd like to see something more from me. And with that, thank you guys so much for watching. Have absolutely lovely day, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.